Good morning and welcome all viewers on this Sunday morning. I'm Devashree Parikh. On behalf of World Vegan Vision, we bring you every month a panel discussion on various aspects of veganism. Today our topic is raising a vegan child. It is indeed a very challenging decision for any parent, not only to how to raise a child, but how to raise a vegan child. As a parent, we want to transfer all the knowledge and wisdom we have attained to our children with no consequences. And to solve this quest, Laura is a science teacher. Uh, we have Vanessa. She has been New York City teacher, biology teacher for the past 12 years. We have about 6 vegan parents, with us today on the panel, and we would be sharing our journey of raising vegan children along with Dr. Nilesh Jariwala. He has been leading pediatrician for past 30 years. He specializes in obesity in young adults and has fellowship in nutrition and functional holistic medicine from Columbia University. Dr. Jariwala will provide us his views and provide us more insight adapting vegan diet for children. So let's start with our very young parent, Paige Pelfrey from California. She has 7 months old baby and she turned vegan when she was 20. So Paige, what prompted you to take the vegan route and to raise a vegan child?
So hello everybody. And what prompted me is I know how good it made me feel. And as soon as I dove into all the research on animal rights and overall health and the preventative side of a plant-based diet, I just knew there was no question when bringing a baby into the world of anything I could do to better his health. And in the kitchen, it was something I was excited to do, but something no one in my family had done. So it's been a journey for me.
So what prompted you to turn vegan in the
So
first place?
yeah, I wasn't feeling great. I had been on a very meat heavy diet my whole life. My family eats a lot of meat and I never knew anything different.
Mhm.
And so in my early 20s, I just started researching what a vegetarian diet could do for me. And soon after, reading books and watching documentaries, I was really excited to try to go vegan. And I ended up just sticking with it because I felt so much better in my stomach, my gut, everything, more energized. And that's how I decided to make the change, was really health.
Hmm. So, I mean, you have only 7 months old baby. So, how do you deal with their nutrition and the baby food? Have you consulted
Yeah,
a pediatrician for your dietary concerns?
sure. Yeah. So, a lot of people have the concern of, if they're going to be deficient, if they're not getting the standard um, formulas that are sold in major markets. And so I've been breastfeeding primarily, but my pediatrician, they didn't have a lot of information for me on a plant-based diet. And a lot of the formulas that I looked at didn't really have the full nutrients that I wanted. But
Hmm.
so far, just doing breast milk and then pureeing like fruits and vegetables has been sufficient, and he's perfectly healthy. So I don't see any reason now to stop. And I want to continue to raise him that way on just buying organic fruits and vegetables and blending them up ourselves. And he's on track for perfect growth and health at this point. So that's been really great for us.
That's a great effort, Paige.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's turn to our very own Neetu Jindal, who has been vegan for past 23 years, and she has been raising her 9-year-old son Nirvana as vegan since his birth. She's a very strong animal rights activist and part of World Vegan Vision family for past 2 years. So Neetu, tell us about your journey raising a vegan child since birth. What made you do this?
So I have, like you said, I've been vegan for 23 years. So it was very natural for me to have my son go vegan right away. So I breastfed him for a year and a half, and then right away from there, directly to vegan foods. So it was not that difficult as it was back in the day when I had turned vegan. That time there were no substitutes available. There wasn't anything that, if my son had turned vegan back in the 90s, I'm sure he would have much more trouble being vegan. But now there's so many alternatives available. A lot of the people, I mean, a lot of the kids can get the cupcakes and ice creams and whatnot even in your local supermarket. So it's very easy for him at this point. And even though he's probably the only one in his class who is vegan, so it becomes a little bit of like he feels like he's special. He feels that he's like, he gets everything different, which is nice for him. All the kids want that. But in the beginning, he came and told me once, Mom, I'm the only vegan in the class. So I said, you know what? You're the superhero. You save animals. And saving animals is something that's amazing. Not everybody can do it. You're saving the earth, the environment, everything. And like, how we have like just one Superman, one Spider-Man, there's only one of you. So you're doing something really great. And since then he's been like, oh, I'm a superhero. I'm a vegan superhero. So he doesn't feel anything about being vegan. He actually feels great about it.
Okay.
So
So
yeah.
were you concerned about his nutritional need from very beginning? How did you address those responsibilities, providing him the complete meal?
So, because we had a vegan household already, we were already eating a lot of the good stuff, a lot of the vegan stuff. So there was no transition. So there was nothing that, extra I had to include in his food. And I really feel that his nutrition is really proper considering, his academics, he's doing very good. In sports, he participates in soccer and, he does very well in sports as well. So I don't see that there's any lack or something I should be concerned about. In fact, on the contrary, I think that it's much better that he is consuming an all plant-based diet, which actually makes them much more stronger. And if you watch this movie called The Game Changers, it's on Netflix, you'll see a lot of the athletes are now becoming vegan. And even the world's strongest man is vegan. So, nutritionally, I think vegan kids do really, really well.
Thank you, Neetu. Yeah, it's definitely great insight. So let's hear from Michael and Laura Goldberg. They both are vegan. Laura is a science teacher, as I said earlier, and they have been vegan for past, 20 years now about?
At least, I would say like 22, 23.
Yeah, and you have two children, 11 and 14, two sons, I believe.
Yes.
And you have been raising them vegan. So tell me your story. Tell our viewers your story. Why did you turn vegan and why you decided to turn your children vegan and raise them vegan?
Okay, so both of my boys have been raised vegan since birth. They were both breastfed and they went straight to vegan food from there. Something I just hear the other mothers talking, and something that comes up a lot, people will ask me, are you sure your boys are getting the right nutrients because they don't eat meat? And I said, it's a lot of it is about what they're not putting, like the toxins that they're not putting in their body by not eating meat. Other mothers, they're feeding their kids hot dogs and things like that. And then they're looking at me like, are you sure your kids are getting the right nutrients? Yeah, they're getting everything they need. Both boys, they do very well in sports. One is involved in soccer and martial arts, and the other one does baseball and dance. So they're doing very, very well physically. Academically, they're both way ahead of their class. My older son, the 14-year-old, he goes to Bergen Academies, and that's a school in New Jersey. It's ranked in the top 5 high schools in the entire country. My other son, the younger one, he's in middle school, and he's 2 years advanced in his math class because he's doing so well there. So, I mean, overall, physically, emotionally, academically, they're just doing very, very well all around. And their classmates love them too. They have a lot of friends.
Have they influenced any other kids to turn vegan because they are?
They definitely have influenced their friends to try vegan foods. When their friends come over here, obviously, if I serve them lunch, they're going to get a vegan lunch, and they're all happy to do that. And they always make comments. Like there was one time when a boy came over and he had a tofurkey sandwich at our house, and he said, "This is so much better than real turkey." And yeah, and my husband and I too, the same thing. Like when we go out with our friends, we go to vegan restaurants, and our friends, they respect us enough to go and eat our food, and they like it. Mm-hmm. Vegan food, if it's made, if you know what to eat, it's not just about eating kale all day long. There's just so much out there, and if people give it a chance, they realize this is really good food.
There's a lot of benefits across the board, right? Just
yes.
Adapt to the plant-based diet.
Exactly.
So great, lovely raising them, and they will be great human with a lot of compassion all around.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to chime in. Laura's humble too, but this year she was the runner-up for Teacher of the Year in the PETA organization. So it was
excellent.
just something really we were excited
Many
about.
kudos to you. Yes.
Thank you.
Very inspirational for all the parents. So let's move to now Vinny Taneja. She's a holistic health coach and has been vegan since she was 16 years old. Being in Punjabi family, and basically they all meet they eat a lot of dairy. She has decided to turn vegan since she was 16, and her child she has been raising since she was 2.5 years old. So Vinny, tell us about your story, and how was your journey as a vegan mother?
Yeah, so basically, my daughter, it's kind of interesting. She had a lot of rounds of ear infections, and I basically started doing some research and decided to get out. I want to clarify something. I turned vegetarian when I was 16, but I've been vegan for 10 years. I just want to clarify that. So, and so basically, I started doing some due diligence and realized, how dairy was really tied to a lot of mucus production and things like that. And my daughter's predisposed to ear infections due to DNA and things like that. So really decided to get her on a more vegan diet, which was a big deal in our family because, as you said, Punjabis, they eat a lot of dairy-based food. So I got a lot of pushback from both my parents and my family and my husband's family. At the end of the day, I didn't really want my daughter going under anesthesia at 2.5 to get tubes placed in her ear. And I kind of really knew what was best for my child. So that was one of the things that inspired me. Also, I went to holistic nutrition school and saw Dr. Neil Bernard speak. And he really inspired me with the reversal of diabetes and heart disease. So that runs rampant on both sides in our family. So I just wanted to, it's for multiple reasons. But, when you become vegan at a time when it's not that popular, whatever, so many years ago, people are everybody becomes a nutrition expert. Where do you get your protein? And I'm really able to balance the macro and micronutrients due to my studies. And just, I would say one thing that's really important is to help your child find a tribe. So I sent her to my daughter's 16 now. I got a question here. My daughter's 16. I sent her to Youth Empowered Activism Camp, YA Camp, and it's a totally vegan camp. And I sent her there 3 years in a row so that she would find others like her, because I wanted her to understand that, there are other people out there, and it's not just your school system or your neighborhood, but that really helped her with any sort of kind of not fitting in and things like that. So being very proactive and taking to her vegan festivals in Manhattan and taking her to different restaurants and showing her that there are people out there like us, So
has she had any experience at school for going through some social awkwardness as being vegan, and how she deals with that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, listen, kids can be really cruel. We all know that, right? So if there was someone who was like really closed-minded and assertive, I would just say like, listen, just dismiss it and say you have an allergy and be done with it. Because you really don't need to explain your choices to anyone. If there was someone who was more open-minded and really was curious, like she did have some girlfriends who were like, oh, I want to know. And they've come over and they've eaten, and same as Laura was saying, like I cook a lot and I cook all ethnic foods, all different types of ethnic, so Mexican, Italian, Chinese, Indian, whatever, anything and everything. And so her friends would be like, oh my God, your mom's amazing. I can't believe this is vegan and da, 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 da. And so, you know, I just really think that it's about, you know, when people have an open mind and they want to learn, it's great. But if people are closed off, you know, just it's really not, you know, I always let her know, like, you just be comfortable with who you are and show up as your authentic self, but just know you don't need to explain anything to anyone unless they're really, you know, giving you the vibe that they want to learn more. So
in turn, I think it boosts a lot of self-confidence too in a child.
Yeah. So she, you know, I think it's also about modeling behavior. Like I don't have a lot of vegan friends, but I have a lot of friends who are open to it. And so she sees me interacting with people and how I've brought people along the way with me, and really my friends and family members now have like changed so many habits. And so before, you know, there's that saying, first they laugh at you, then they join you. So that's basically like she's seen that transition. So I think it's really important to, you know, like I said, to be true to yourself, be authentic to yourself, believe in yourself, empower yourself. And if, you know, people want to learn, that's fine, bring them along. But if they don't, that's their issue, and just be like, it's fine, you know, it's not everybody's, it's not for everyone, and that's okay, you know.
Right. So now we have another set of wonderful parents, Vanessa and Tushar Hefa. They have been vegan since 2012, and they are proud parents of 2 children, ages 7 and 5. As I said earlier, also Vanessa is a teacher. She has been public school teacher for past 12 years, and they have been raising vegan children since their birth. And so Vanessa and Tushar, please share your story.
Sure. So we were vegetarian back starting in 2008. I was vegetarian earlier in my life as well, but Vanessa thought what we thought was doing the right thing by becoming vegetarian. So one day, I don't know if you want to say it, or Vanessa was at a teaching conference and was handed a flyer from a group called Mercy for Animals. And upon reading that flyer, she came home to me and said, hey, we should really look into this. Like, I had no idea about the dairy industry. I had no idea about any of this stuff. So we researched it. We volunteered with them. We went to an animal sanctuary and helped clean up. Again, I think it's really important to see what you're talking about. It's all conceptual when you say, oh, this is what happens to an animal. But when you see that animal, when you see their eyes, you really connect. So we volunteered at the animal sanctuary with the group, did some more research, and then really some powerful videos that we watched. One was called Farm to Fridge, which is really graphic. And then another one was called Vegucated. So we watched those, and then immediately we said, okay, that's it, we're going vegan. And subsequent to that, we became pregnant, Vanessa became pregnant with our daughter, and it really just made all the sense in the world to raise her vegan, and then subsequently our son.
Someone else said you wouldn't want to give your children something that you don't eat, right? So why? There was no question that raising them vegan was just the right and the only thing to do.
Yep, so true. Like, what you don't eat, why should you give it to your kids, right? So Vanessa, you have been teaching for 12 years. So what should schools do to make it easier for vegan children? Because I think many, it's quite a bit of a big numbers who are turning into vegan these days, and it is becoming a way of lifestyle among a lot of people. So what do you suggest being in a school system, that how can we make this easier for vegan children?
I think it's a long process, but it's something that it needs to happen because we need to be more inclusive. There are many children with allergies, but there are also children that are vegan for the ethical reasons. And when our daughter went to school, our first step was to speak to the principal to ask for options in the lunchroom, and that's not always easy to get. But I think it starts with a group of parents speaking up, not only addressing a concern, but also providing solutions. What else?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are certain organizations, like in New York, there's this coalition for foods that are promoting plant-based foods all within the New York City school system.
Mm-hmm.
So that, we've participated with them in a number of things.
Have you looked into like creating like a vegan clubs or, approaching the school system, to adopt some kind of a vegan diet on a regular basis in the schools?
We haven't, and it's just because we were only in the system for 1 year with my daughter, but when I was a teacher in Harlem,
Mm-hmm.
I created a garden, and they gave me such a difficult time to even just for whatever we brought from the garden to serve it in the lunchroom, because there are all these regulations that have to do with the Department of Education, so it's not easy. It's not easy to just bring food or to offer solutions. It really takes a lot of planning and collaboration, and like you said, maybe organizations that can also help the administration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one thing I'd add to that is, in the U.S. specifically, the school lunches and whatnot are served according to the, I think it's the FDA guidelines in terms of what the proper food groups are. And in December, they're going to look at, the current guidelines, which, have the typical standard American diet,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically beef, dairy, etc. One of the things a number of groups are advocating for, which we're helping as well, is to remove dairy. And Canada has been successful at doing that. And once you can change those food groups, then so many millions of meals change with it because they have to be given according to those guidelines. So it's a combination of what Vanessa said, thinking kind of locally with your individual schools, but then, participating and trying to help other organizations think more globally as well.
So basically, we need to have a combination of top-down versus the locals too, to create awareness and
both ways.
understanding our school system.
For sure.
Yep. Thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sharmista Kumar, you have turned vegan for past 5 years, and you have been raising your son vegan since 5 years since you became mother. So Sharmi, can you share your experience and your biggest takeaway raising a vegan son?
Sounds good. Just to give a background, I had no idea about nutrition. I had no idea about what veganism even was. Just like any other mother who goes through, any mammal who goes through labor and delivery and all these challenges. When I gave birth to my son, like the hormones made me extra emotional, and people were just sharing their well wishes, and I got a video, and that video changed my life about like this mother cow trying to protect her young one, and I could not enjoy the cup of chai that I was having the same way ever again. And I still like the taste. I still did not make any changes, but I just, something snapped in me. I mean, I ate a little bit of meat during my pregnancy because I thought it was good, just always cared about my health and my nutrition. But when this newfound knowledge was very disturbing. And I tried to search for ethical sources of dairy to the extent that I searched and searched. But as a woman, as a lactating mother, I felt that there was no way we can take the breast milk that belongs to another child. It just did not feel right. And there may be certain farms that I felt were like treating the mother cows a little bit better. But overall, I didn't feel there was a right way to do the wrong.
Doesn't eat milk.
Hello.
But I didn't feel there was a right way to do, like, take milk, right? There was no right way to do the wrong thing to me. Okay, so the easy part was the food. There was no issues with that. I lived exactly opposite Whole Foods, so there was tons of options, and even like I could figure out a way to make chai really good. But it was like this revolutionary concept and idea.
Does
when you're
chicken eat milk?
This revolutionary concept and idea where family finds it like really new for them to come to terms with, where you don't want to feed your human child cow's milk. It's still, yeah, it's as illogical as that seems, that you want to feed a different species breast milk to your child, human child. The fact that they even thought that human milk was not sufficient for, just 1 second. Avinash, can you take him? Sorry. They even felt that human milk was not sufficient for a human baby. And that was the conditioning. And I myself did not build, even though logically it makes sense, the conditioning is so powerful. So I did a lot of research on the internet, PCRM, Physician Committee of Responsible Medicine, read the China study, Dr. T. Colin Campbell's, and a lot of things. And I came across other parents. And I wanted to raise my child in the most healthiest environment. I was lucky that, you know, we moved to New Jersey, Jersey City, because it was more convenient. And Johan's preschool, and this was not the reason I joined him in the school, but his preschool serves, is a whole foods vegan diet, is what they serve all kids in this preschool. It's called the Scandinavian School of Jersey City. And although the parents are not necessarily vegan and the teachers are not vegan all the time, they do believe that nutritionally a vegan diet is whole and it's sound, and it can benefit a child, benefit a human in all stages of their life. So the nutritionist they hired, although not vegan, promotes a vegan diet. It says it's perfect. So it's really funny that, like, even though they're not practicing it, they acknowledge that a vegan diet is perfectly sound.
I think Scandinavians are very big on non-plant-based diet, right?
I think they are also, I feel like Sweden, and I've recently been to a few Scandinavian countries, and they're more advanced, they're growing, and they're thinking more out of the box, and they're going with the science. And even places like Iceland, it's so plant-based because they believe it is better for the environment. So when I was in Iceland, I asked somebody how come it is so vegan friendly for a place where you can hardly grow crops. They say, we see, you guys hear about climate change in news, we see it right in front of us. Snow-capped peaks that had snowed for 30 years is melting, glaciers are melting. So they are very, I feel like the Scandinavian countries are more, they want to promote more sustainable and an environmental friendly lifestyle. But for me, I didn't know all this. It was just for the ethics. Especially it started with dairy. You know, I had to make a connection. As a mother, I couldn't do this put another mother in pain. It just wasn't.
As we know, we are the only animal species who drinks other animals' milk, right? No other animal drinks other animals' milk. Except
it doesn't, and if it does, it is on rare extreme circumstances in nature. It is not the norm.
For the survival of the fittest, right?
Yeah, it is not. Somehow humans have convinced ourselves that we have the same nutritional needs as a baby cow, and for some reason we have convinced ourselves, and we keep repeating the same thing, that it has become culture and tradition now. But I hope a lot of culture and tradition changes, and similarly we evolve towards a more kinder and a healthier world.
Surely, can agree more than this. And I think One Vegan Vision is trying to do the same thing, create the awareness how important it is, vegan diet in our lives. So Dr. Jariwala is with us today. with his expertise. First, I would like to know, what do you really think? You heard all the parents. What do you really think about the nutritional value, which is the biggest concern for any parent to decide to raise their kids vegan?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this wonderful panel of parents. Listening to them gives me a different perspective. I'm a practicing pediatrician for 30 years, and during my residency, there was hardly any training on nutrition. So both the parents said the same thing, that when they go to a pediatrician's office, they did not get many resources. And when I started practicing, I kind of learned on job that a lot of my parents want to know about the vegan diet, how to raise a healthy child, how to raise a happy child. So learning from that and going to training on my own, definitely vegetarian food, vegan food, plant-based diet is a better, superior way to raise a healthy child. I mean, there's a lot of politics, and in terms of schooling, meal planning, food pyramid, the milk industry, the dairy industry, they all have influences on what we eat. So Dr. Spock, who had written a very famous parenting book from last 50 years. It was a bestseller for almost 5 decades. And in the beginning, when in 40s, he used to recommend providing meat and dairy to children as young as 4 months. Now, when in 90s, Dr. Spock turned vegan, and he had a big frame. He was 6 feet 4 inches tall, and he had some health problems. So then he lost 50 pounds. He became a vegan, and then he became a strong proponent of a vegan diet. So milk is not good for human babies, and we can always find superior plant-based protein to raise a healthy child.
So what do you have to say or advise our viewers today about raising a vegan children? What is your personal views on this?
What I mean, there is
aspect of it.
There is a strong body of evidence that plant-based diet is superior, that red meat is not healthy for your child. You really don't need that much of protein, and you can always get protein from the plant food, and it's actually superior, more palatable. It's more healthier. We really don't need milk or dairy products to take calcium. That's again a myth. So we can definitely achieve
B12 and D3 and the DHA and EPAs and stuff.
Well, with the D3, you can vitamins D, you can take a supplement or from sun exposure. The calcium from the milk is not really absorbed and can cause a lot of problem. Actually causes more problems than health. Same thing with the protein. You can get a lot of protein from the plant-based diet. So there's really no need to eat meat to get extra protein. We really don't need that much protein anyway, because our body doesn't store protein. Whatever we eat today, and if we have an extra protein, that gets digested back to the sugar. So certain amount of protein, you can get it from the plants. Peanut, for example, is a healthy choice. Rice and beans is a healthy choice without cholesterol. So there are lots of ways we can find a plant-based diet to raise a healthy and a happy child.
Thank you. All the parents on the panel, do you have any question for Dr. Jariwala?
I'd like to just chime in. Somebody wrote about vitamin B12, and please keep me honest here. So from what I've read, and everybody please chime in, it's vitamin B12 is like grown in soil, and it's basically based out of a bacteria, and the bacteria creates vitamin B12, and it is not something that's created in any mammalian's body. The way we used to get good sources of vitamin B12 is from vegetables and root vegetables that now they're like in ultra sanitized country, they're thoroughly washed, probably chlorine washed, and that kind of washes away the vitamin B12. And the other thing is, I think the soil value is currently depleted of vitamin B12 also, and it's not like it used to be before. So I think because the soil is not as nutritionally sound, we are lacking vitamin B12 in the soil. And therefore, that is probably the one thing that I do supplement for my child, because it's naturally getting vitamin B12, whether you're a meat eater or you're vegan, it's hard to get vitamin B12 naturally.
Jariwala, what do you have to say about B12?
Well, I just agree with what she said. I mean, you do make a vitamin B12 in your gut microflora, so you can get that supplements, or you can take the supplements from any vitamin companies. That's as long as it's made from the plants, you know. So.
Any other
Thanks for confirming that. From the expert. So okay.
So yeah. So B12 is a supplemental for anybody, not even just plant-based diet. So it's a common supplement that we all need to worry about and take care of it. Any other questions? Any questions from the viewers?
I have just one thing, Devashree. I believe, Laura, you mentioned that you had some success in getting the schools to incorporate a vegan diet or something of that. So you just mentioned in a comment.
Oh.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, sure. So I'm a teacher. So am I coming through? Okay. I'm a teacher. So I run an environmental club after school, and we have an outdoor garden, and we do one of those hydroponics indoor gardens as well. And we grow kale, lettuce, spinach, and we actually serve it in the cafeteria. So it's like I have a sneaky way that I go about doing it. I go to the cafeteria ladies and I say, like, you know, I'm like super nice to them and everything. And I say, here, you know, would you mind making a salad out of this? I do it once a week, every Friday. You know, when we're in school, I can do this. And they'll make a nice salad with it. They don't put cheese or meat or anything in it. They make a nice homemade dressing and they serve it. And the kids always tell me, they're always like, Mrs. Goldberg, this is the best thing that they've ever served in the cafeteria. So, I mean, yeah, as a parent, it would be really hard to go into the school and get them to start serving vegan food. Like, I mean, as much as I would love to see that happen, I don't see that happening anytime in the near future. But I mean, I have to say that the feedback I've gotten from the students on the salads has been tremendously positive.
So yeah, as they say always, right? It's a movement that we have to start at the ground level.
Mm-hmm.
Not to hope for the top to bottom, but the ground level movement has to be started. And I think the teachers are the great platform to teach the kids the way to eat.
Yeah.
So what we did in some of our local schools, high schools here, is that we started a vegan club. Especially in the Metuchen High School, and we have certain kids who are vegan there, and they are kind of encouraging other kids. They're doing some programs, so it kind of works that way as well. When you encourage kids to start vegan clubs, and therefore sort of send a message to the something like a chart wealth, right? That there's more need for a vegan diet. You know, like right now, I believe many of the New Jersey schools are offering free meals to all the kids. And I went through their menu and there's nothing really that my son can get. Like if there's one thing in the lunch, there's nothing in the breakfast. Like everything there's milk and cheese and meat in it. So we need to start more, I think, vegan clubs or sort of more communication with the principal and the teachers to get the message across.
Yeah, the breast milk is most important. And I hear that one of the viewers have said that they have even the milk banks created for the mothers and not to depend on the other animals' milk. Any other questions from the viewers we have today?
I noticed a question. Someone asked if a child is in orphanages, what can we give newborns and infants that don't have a mother?
Do you have any suggestion, Dr. Jariwala or anybody on the panel who have dealt with this?
Well, I had patients come from there's whole adoption agencies who work through all over the world, bringing patients to kids to the United States. I distinctly remember one child from India was fed rice water. So in orphanages, it's very hard because of the poverty and the situation they are in, and many parts of the world where formulas are just not available. You know, we are privileged here in the United States that we have a lot of resources, and even for adoption agencies and people who are less fortunate, they do have resources and backing from the government. But in, say, India or many developing countries where kids get adopted from, they don't have the resources. So there's no real answers. It's all about money, and kids suffer, you know.
I mean, they have, what do you have to say about something like a supplemental, like a soya milk or?
Yeah, I mean,
is it
has,
sufficient if that situation is there? And they
well,
want
the soy formulas are the way to give it, because if the breast milk is not there, you can give soy-based formulas, but the soy-based formulas are very expensive.
So again, for the third world country, it would not work.
Yeah, so I mean, they start feeding solids at a younger age, 4 to 6 months of age. And they do have nutritional deficiencies and growth failures and stuff like that. So that's unfortunate, you know, but there's no real practical answer because it's so vast and it's so diverse. You can't just pick up one answer and give it, right?
Any questions?
I had a question for Dr. Jariwala. You mentioned how nutrition right now is not a big, like the coursework and becoming a doctor is very little. Is there, you know, how do we create change from that perspective so that, you know, in our experience, we have described to our pediatrician that our kids are vegan. And I can't tell you how many times they've said, hey, why don't you give them fish? Or what about this? And we continually have to explain what vegan is and, you know, how we get nutrition. So I'm just wondering how to create change in the medical industry to focus more on nutrition.
Well, the thing is that in the medical school curriculum, and I'm telling you for the fact, in my whole 3 years of training, we had one lecture on nutrition. My daughter is in medical school. She had maybe 1 week of training in nutrition. So in general, the medical school curriculum is based on disease treatments, complications, intensive care. There's not much training on wellness, nutrition, diet, and that science is very evolving. So what you do as a conscious person is to just keep learning. That's what medicine is about. You know, medicine is evolving. What they taught us in 90s and 80s is not true anymore in every aspect. So you have to keep learning, and that's what the pediatrician's job is, actually, to keep learning, keep reading, keep making recommendations based on the strong body of the evidence from the research institutes like all Ivy League schools. That's part of our ongoing learning and training to keep our patients well aware of what is the truth and what really needs to be done. So that change is hard to make because of the funding and the politics behind all those things. So we can make the change on our own basis. I can do that by learning myself, but I can't force other people to do the same.
So I have another question. There's one viewer is asking, is there any guide for vegan growing kids from infants where they can't really have solid foods? What exactly should we provide them in the age where they cannot have solid foods other than breast milk and plant-based milk?
Well, I didn't understand the question again. Can you say it again? So,
what exactly should we provide them in the age, and meaning very early age, infancy, where they cannot have solid foods other than breast milk and plant-based milk?
Well, usually up to first 6 months, breastfeeding or formula feeding, that's what you need to do. So formula feeding, formulas are milk-based or soy-based or whey protein-based. So if the mother is not breastfeeding, they can always select a formula. And after that, they can start with solids like cereal, fortified cereal. And in general, breast milk or formula and cereal is plenty. The fruits and vegetables, you can give them as a treat. And that's more than sufficient for a child to grow. You don't really need a meat as a source of the protein for growth. After 12 months, when, some cultures like from Middle East, people like to give cow's milk as early as 6 months, which is not good because that can cause iron deficiency, can cause colitis and growth failure. But after 12 months, if they want to, I tell parents not to give that much of milk because the healthy pyramid from FDA and US Agriculture Department is also flawed. They tell people to give at least 3 glasses of milk every day. And that's influenced by the meat and the dairy industry. So that is also not correct. So less milk is better. And then whatever the family eats, that's the best food for the child.
Devashree, I want to chime in.
Yes.
The question was about what to feed a baby that cannot have solid food and doesn't have access to mother's milk. So from an ethical point of view, I think that the correct answer would be that give the baby the best formula you can provide.
Exactly.
Because there is no mother's milk available. And veganism is about living your life by hurting as few animals as possible. But still, if you need to survive, if you have to harm animals, that's acceptable. So do not worry about the cow's milk or the whey protein in the formula if your child really needs it and you don't have access to mother's milk. So that is an ethical point of view about providing food.
And I think there is a PCRM guide also, and we have the link that we can post it later on also, that they can.
Yeah, I just put the link on
Yes,
the group
I see
chat.
that.
But I agree. Somebody else chimed in. I think from an ethical standpoint, it is doing your best as practical as possible. And if you're like in a desert with which is always the question that vegans, what will you do if you're in an island,
Survival of fittest, even animals drink other animals.
That imaginary island I have imagined multiple times. And yes, if I'm in that island with absolutely nothing, I will survive. And I'm no less of a vegan because of that, because that is survival. But this is like, if you have a choice between a soy-based formula and a dairy formula, choose the soy-based because it's pretty nutritionally sound. And but if you don't have a choice, it's a pretty simple answer. So I agree with, it's not a religion. We're not doing it like a religion. We're doing it like more like it's an evolutionary, it's like more like veganism is a social justice movement, and an offshoot of that social justice movement is, are we making sure we are nutritionally sound? And yes, we are nutritionally sound, but if you don't have a choice, yes, you don't have a choice.
Yes, I can agree on that. It's a survival of fittest, and as you very well put it, that it's not hard and fast. We believe in it. It's not a religion, and we have to do our best. A lot of things in life that we do, which are not in our control, and we have to adapt to it. Any other question?
So there's a good resource. If people are on Facebook, there is a group called Vegan Pregnancy and Parenting. A lot of my friends, it's not just for vegans, it's for everybody. A lot of good questions if to raise good children, recipes. It's a very good group. So if you guys, any moms and dads, if you want to join that group and you're on Facebook, you can look up Vegan Pregnancy and Parenting and join that. It's a good resource. And I joined that group and my son was like 1.5 years.
Yeah, and I think I'm reading a note here also from Dr. Parikh, and also I heard from Tushar saying the same thing, that USDA pyramid is a little bit tainted, a lot of industrial interest and influences on that. So I think we all need to, or as an organization, or even, there has to be some kind of standardized vegan nutrition pyramid has to be established. And if you can do that, I think it will be revolutionary.
Actually, there is, from the Harvard Medical School, there is a modified food pyramid that was published by Dr. Wilbur. Mm-hmm. And that's from 91. And it actually just talks about incorporating vegan and plant-based food and then avoiding dairy and milk altogether. And there is no proof that milk is beneficial. So that campaign of Got Milk, we had to question.
Yeah.
There's a movie called What the Health, and if somebody wants to know what we are being fed in terms of advertising and what the websites, the Cancer Association, and all the health associations in the US, what what the propaganda is, you'd actually want to watch that movie and really want to get the facts very clear. It talks about a lot of the organizations that are supposedly trying to cure cancer are actually indirectly increasing the chance of you getting cancer, or not. There's no they're not trying to find a cure, they're just trying to keep you sick. So if you can watch the movie, it's quite an eye-opener, and especially for parents and people who are curious about veganism.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us today, taking your time on Sunday morning. What a fantastic vegan journey all of you are having, and indeed very inspiring and thought-provoking and reassuring for our viewers that if they have the conviction, they can raise vegan children, they can adopt vegan lifestyle, and after all, respect all animals, not only for our own health benefits, but for all living beings on this planet Earth. And animals are friends, and we don't eat our friends. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next month in our next series. We'll post it on our Facebook and YouTube channels. Thank you.
Thank you.